to the Insomnicat Show with Nicolette and Brian. We'll get real deep with you, educating, inspiring, and solving problems with some of the most inspirational humans on the planet. Buckle up and come on the journey.
I'm excited. All right, guys, I'm Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here with Jason Davis. He is the co-founder and CEO of Simon Data, and he is here to talk to us about, you guessed it, data, right? But we're going to talk a lot about digital transformation, about marketing. We're going to cover a lot of data stuff, and Brian's going to be in his glory. So thank you so much.
I love data.
So thank you, Jason, for joining us today. We really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Nicolette and Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
So why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to data science?
Yeah, I mean, look, from my perspective, it's really about when I look back on my career, it's really about looking at where the move is, where the world is heading. I always love mathematics, and computer science for me as an undergraduate was really an area of passion for me on where mathematics can be applied. And as I finished my undergraduate degree, I really just saw amazing opportunities in machine learning and data. I pursued a PhD in machine learning, data science. Wasn't called data science at the time. And really just spent about 4 or 5 years working on implementations of machine learning algorithms, and also lots of the mathematics behind it. At the same time, about 4 years into my degree, I realized the value in data actually isn't in the algorithms or in the machine learning. It's really in how you use it. This is at a time when Amazon Web Services was a few years old. They were starting to get into large-scale data processing. And suddenly I saw an opportunity in front of me where, as a poor grad student, with a few hundred bucks to play with, for my side project expense fund, I was able to go on Amazon and spin up 10, 20, 30 machines to do some large scale or air quotes large scale data processing, something which was really just inaccessible prior to that, and it really just opened my eyes to the technical side of things and the potential. At the same time, I looked at sort of some of the larger opportunities for machine learning. In an academic setting, there was lots of toy problems that that we were trying to solve, lots of data sets that were very familiar within the academic community, and we all sort of worked towards them and tried to build better algorithms to solve them. But at the end of the day, the world of problems that we solve by data is just so vast, and that's really what drew me out of academia into problems, data problems solved, and startups has really been my path now for the last 15 years or so.
Did you feel like all of a sudden, because I felt like this, all of a sudden, like, we were all collecting all this data, and all of a sudden, like, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, people were like, we need data scientists. Like, it just became like this huge thing, like where those data scientists became jobs, because there weren't, like you said, it's how you're interpreting the data and how you're using it that becomes important. Yeah,
I mean, look, I think data scientist in some sense today is the catch-all job description for for anyone who's not doing data plumbing on the one end, and on the other side, isn't just an analyst. There's a tremendous amount of white space in between, and look, I think the big challenge with data science is twofold. One is data is vast, it's complicated, and someone needs to really start, from a data perspective, someone who's anchored with what the data means, where it comes from, what the complexities are. At the same time, data science is also about actually solving, real world problems and applications.
Right.
And I think a challenge that many businesses face today, is that their end business functions know what the problems are. And then the IT function knows what the opportunities are. And how do you get data science to bridge that? From an organizational perspective, it's still challenged because they have to either fit in IT or fit, in the end business function. And depending on where you sit, you either miss out on business opportunity or miss out on the data. So I think the job description has evolved tremendously over the last 10 years. And I really expect that as data matures, and as technology matures, and as the enterprise starts to really better understand data and the opportunity, the role of the data science will actually evolve away from IT, away from centralized data functions, and be much closer to the end business applications.
So now, how does the data then play a role in, this buzzword digital transformation that everybody throws around? Is data kind of fueling some of that? Should our companies not using data the way they should be to kind of dive into digital transformation? What's the story there?
Look, I mean, digital transformation, anything which is digital can be measured, and anything which can be measured can be stored. If I walk into a jewelry store and I browse around, short of putting security footage in and doing things that I wouldn't expect as a customer, it's tremendously hard to really monitor what I'm doing and really think about the customer base of that that presence in aggregate. When you think about a digitized experience, if I'm instead browsing for jewelry on Etsy as an example, suddenly the customer expectations change tremendously. So look, any experience which is digitized, must be measured. And I think consumers with digital experiences, bring a completely different set of expectations, and brands that aren't able to capitalize on those expectations are losing out. And in the mechanism to capitalize on them is to really understand what they're doing, to measure what they're doing, and then the final leg is to actually use the data to to engage the customer, to build experiences that really enable the customer to realize the value the brand has to offer. And data originates in all that.
I have a question. I was going to wait a little while to ask this, but you just talked about like everything that's digitized needs to be measured right now. How do you feel about testing? We're big testers here. We really love testing things for our business, but what happens when the data doesn't support, or it doesn't look like it's going to support what you want to test? What happens then?
Yeah, look, I think there are big misconceptions in data relative to this. Data doesn't give you the answer, and maybe I'll just step back for a second. So much of the hype around deep learning and machine learning, comes from a set of problems that are really contained. When I think about where machine learning applies, there's sort of two camps. On the one camp, there are applications where the machine can see everything. Okay, on the other camp, there are applications where the machine can only see a glimpse of the world. Self-driving car, cameras, LiDAR, sensors, everything you can imagine. That machine can see around the car better than any human being can, and as a result, technology can drive it very well. They're still figuring it out, but in 10 years, I'd be shocked if the car can't be driven 10 times better than any human can. You think about measuring a business, or measuring how customers are interacting with the brand, buying product, using if you're a bookstore, you might buy the product digitally. You come home, you read the book to your kids. Maybe a page was torn in shipping or whatnot. You're never measuring 99% of those experiences. And to that point, that doesn't mean the data isn't valuable. But what it means though is you need to start with intuition about the customer. You need to start with a strong thesis around where are you driving value. Where is your product great? Where do you need to improve? And then data needs to support that. If you are able to to form clear hypotheses, then the process of testing is very straightforward. You either can validate and verify the hypothesis, in which case you can roll forward, or you can negate the hypothesis, in which case you probably want to be asking other questions about what's actually driving value to your customers, et cetera.
So what's the balance, right, between how much you're putting in as a human being, right, that intuition, and how much you're getting out of, say, machine learning or the AI that's helping you, look through the data?
Yeah, look, the first thing I'll say is there's so much of data and hypothesis-driven testing that has nothing to do with machine learning or AI. I want to understand, if you're an e-commerce brand, how many of my customers are browsing with the intent to buy today versus how many are just browsing with no intent to buy. So a simple test you could run is you could remove the add to cart button. Not that you'd ever do this, But with that, you very quickly understand how
Right.
behaviors change as a result.
Mhm.
No AI. You just need to make sure that you have a hypothesis. You're a little bit thoughtful on how to execute, and then you measure. So that's the first half.
Do you think users, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think users manipulate the system? So for instance, like I know that if I leave something in my cart, Amazon will drop the price at certain points. And Etsy will sometimes send you like, hey, finish checking out. And they'll send you like discounts and things like that. So sometimes I'll actually leave stuff in my cart to get the notification for price drops so I can get it like whatever cheaper, because I know that's how they're functioning, right?
I mean, look, like we like to use an analogy of sort of the jewelry store owner.
Right.
I go in, I'm looking to buy my wife a present for Mother's Day. I come back later in the year, I'm looking for something for her birthday. And by the time I come back for Christmas, the jewelry store owner knows my preference, knows my price point, and sort of really understands who I am. If I won't make any jokes about my mother, but there are other.
You can feel free,
and we'll know how to ask for a discount. You take any sort of relationship, and there's always an element of gamification. And that's it's not a bad thing. Yes,
right.
There's a business cost related to it. Some brands they want to be more aggressive in deterring that kind of behavior. And other brands, for that matter, if they see themselves as value-oriented brands, maybe they want to encourage that kind of behavior, especially within the right types of customers. So, from my perspective, it's not about necessarily making judgment on that, but instead you're saying, hey, this is natural, and this is not bad. But obviously, from a data perspective, you should understand it to the extent that you think you need to understand it, and then have the capabilities to respond to it, and to improve if it's something that needs to be improved.
Brian, how did you get here? How did you derail us?
How did I derail us this much?
I'm trying to remember my original thought now. I don't think about the stuff in my Amazon cart right now.
She's like, I'm telling you, I do that all the time, and then I get notices like price drop. I'm like, there we go. I'm going to buy it right now, like this second. Like I'm just waiting. It's funny. And there are certain things I've noticed, like literally, like I feel like I'm negotiating with the AI, right? I'm negotiating with the algorithm they created, which is funny because I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wait because I know within 24 hours it will send me like a drop. I mean,
look, like segmentation, understanding your customer is foundational to all this. And are you negotiating with the AI, or does the AI understand you, and that's just how it is?
It does because it knows I'm likely to buy it if it drops the price.
I'm a Cornell grad, and I'm involved in Cornell Tech in the city. I give one lecture every year around data-driven product development. And the example I give is if you think back to Waze, they've got those guys must have been crazy. They're going up against Google Maps. What are you doing? You have Google with their cars with the cameras on top, and they're 500 engineers building these beautiful maps. Like, what opportunities there? But they had a vision, and they had a sense of the early adopters, and what Waze did great was sort of the community oriented data collection, and a big part of that was like, let's not get a speeding ticket. So in the early days, how might they have really identified some of the early adopters? Well, let's look at everyone who's ever gone more than 25 miles an hour above the speed limit while using Waze, and let's put them in a bucket. Okay, and now let's go and understand their adoption of the platform, their engagement. Are they using the functionality that really drives value around reporting, police and trying to not get tickets? And that's just, for them, effective execution against that is just critical, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm. No, let me tell you something. That's my favorite feature on Waze. Like going cop, the cop's still there. Cop,
if you're going down to LIE, Brian.
Don't get a ticket, everyone. Stop.
Well, and that actually, when I asked about the testing and, really what I was thinking about was, thinkers versus feelers, right? I mean, to me, that's how I see the data. Like the data is the thinker, and then just going with your intuition is like the feeler. Like, I feel like this is something we should try based on what I feel is our customer. Right, so, when you talk, like when you talk about the Waze example, like maybe the common sense thinker would say, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Look what you're going up against, right? But like that intuition, is that kind of
I think that, I mean, it's a great frame. It's foundational to, what we're doing in Simon Data. Really our strong belief is that, look, getting back to my example of self-driving cars versus really understanding a business and understanding your customers, the focus of Simon Data is 1,000% in the latter. We believe that, data needs to complement the process. We believe that, intuition and creativity, really drive business outcomes and marketing outcomes first. It's not about turning marketing into data science. It's about complementing, data science with marketing. This is, part of the roots of the name is, how do we make data more approachable? How do we really, supercharge your marketer, who has big data aspirations, but doesn't have the capabilities today, to affect that. And when and getting back to the question around data science, for us, the future of data science is pushing the talent out to the edges of the organization, bring them closer to the application, and really making sure that intuition, about, customer experiences, where customers see value in the brand, where they're, where they might be frustrated, that really is the headline. And then, data and data science and analytics and machine learning, is this sort of, very, very close, supporting vector, but, again, is a supporting vector.
So now, I mean, you could have all this data right now, and you've talked about this on LinkedIn in the past. You could have the greatest data in the world and the greatest infrastructure, and you could have all of this, but if you're not using that data correctly, right, it's pretty much for nothing. So my question is, where do you see people kind of go wrong with the data? How are they misusing the data or not using it enough?
Yeah, look, when we sort of think about these problems, there are two camps. The first thing that I think is really, it's a subtle point that people don't get unless you're operational. Is just how hard it is to actually use data. You look at large brands, large enterprises, and they'll be spending, 10, 20, $30 million a year, $100 million a year on their data infrastructure and their data team. Yet within the same four walls of that business, you might go to, someone who runs, a customer marketing team and ask them, how are you able to leverage your data? And it's just like, moving heaven and earth, to add new data fields into their marketing system as a really tactical example. So really the first part of the first answer to your question is data's got to be easy. There has to be fluidity between the assets that the business has from a data perspective and the capabilities for the business stakeholders to use them. Because guess what? Something is hard, people aren't going to do it. That's just an act of human nature, and it's certainly not exempt from how anyone does their jobs. So that's number one. And the second thing is, look, like you need to make sure that your strategy, and your technical capabilities can support a next generation of personalization. They can support speaking to the customer, to where they might they might be today. It needs to support the ability to break down customers across personas and segments, and really understand what the different buying reasons are, and what the different shopping modes might be. And then assimilate that into a single place, which isn't just about building charts and graphs to be like, hey, we have Janes and Bobs and Marys, but instead, actually, now we're going to employ our marketing strategy against James and Bobs and Marys, that really, is in direct response to, how those different customers actually orient the business.
So then, now, you mentioned it's difficult, let's say, for marketers to get some of those fields in and to get the correct data, right? So now at your current organization, that's where your focus is, marketers, right? So let's. What I'd like to know is, what is your advice for marketers, right, when it comes to data and strategy?
I mean, look, first thing, make sure that you have, a strong team, or minimally, an individual on your marketing team who has very strong data jobs. This doesn't need to be a data scientist, but it needs to be someone, first and foremost, who's very strong in Excel. It should be someone who, really gets the data behind a lot of the standard marketing paradigms, attribution, and general marketing analytics. And you really must start there. And with that, it's about just making sure and once that sort of expertise is in house, you then need to think about the culture. How do you really transform a marketing organization that might be very focused on brand, might be very cookie cutter when it comes to messaging, to be one-to-one, to be personalized, and to really think in a way that is not one size fits all. I think when you look at sort of the people and the process sides of things, I mean, those are sort of two points in that bucket. And then of course on the system side, our platform is designed to really provide a conduit from data assets across the entire business into marketing analysts and really into anyone else who needs to operationalize customer segments, target customer segments, and drive dynamic personalization across multiple channels.
Do you find sometimes, because I know we find this, we deal with a lot of marketers, and sometimes they don't even know like what's driving users to their site, or like the content, or do you know what I mean, like how users are even coming, like they don't, their knowledge, like you said, they're just focused on brand, like I need to get my brand out there, or I have my conversion, whatever that is, it's sales, or it's whatever, traffic, or new user acquisition, or whatever, but they don't really understand how it's coming in.
Right. I mean, look, like at the end of the day, I think for any brand that is sort of on a trajectory for modernizing and digitizing, even if folks don't get it today, those same enterprises have a data strategy, right. And they have marketing goals around being more personalized. I think the challenge is if you aren't operational, it can feel very abstract. At Simon, we have we're a values-driven organization, and one of our values is something we call build strategically. And what does this mean? Yes, like we have a 5-year strategy. I'm tremendously excited about the disruption we can affect. Yet at the end of the day, we need to learn by doing. That includes us internally, and then also includes how we think about enabling our customers to drive outcomes. Once you see the data in front of you, once you can break down the acquisition sources and look at how that relates back to lifetime value as a simple example. And then once you can then go and deploy incremental efforts against those behaviors and those actions, it really starts you thinking in a different way. When you ask why did this email as an example perform so well against this customer segment? Well, right. If you have strong data to report on that, it's a game changer. If you can ask a question, how might this other segment respond to this kind of messaging? And once you have those conversations internally, and then if you can actually deploy that tomorrow, it changes the conversation. If you start asking, hey, what if we try do 2 different types of messaging across these 3 different types of segments, and by end of week you can deploy a test, and then next week get the results. Again, it changes the conversation. So it's really about learning by doing, and ultimately. This is, I think, the challenge with putting data science in a back office. It ultimately is a reporting function. But when it's when it's operationalized, suddenly it's a doing function, and you can start learning a lot more faster.
And I think to Nicola's point earlier, there's part of that's testing. You find something that works. How does it work against other segments, or will it work against other segments? Maybe from the data, it may or may not. Or have, So I think the testing becomes super important in there.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I think one of the challenges with data as a function is it's historically regressive. What's back in time?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What is marketing about? Or what is business about? It's not looking forward. Yes, like this happened last year, but what you really care about is next year. We're using that as a model to go forward. And by the way, it's not just modeling what's going to happen, but how do we influence what's going to happen?
Right. And what's interesting is too, it's interesting because you can't always take into, as you look at it, as it's forward looking, right? It's future looking. Things happen. We didn't expect 2020 to happen the way 2020 happened. It's changed a lot of things for people. So, things happen along that way. So sometimes history may not always necessarily be the best predictor, in all cases. So, there's the flexibility in what you're doing as a marketer, let's say, or your business strategy.
I mean, look, really, when you get into brass tacks of the problems we're solving, the first problem we solve is speed. And it's especially when COVID hit, really the brands that came out of it, and that were successful, the ones were the ones that were able to move quickly. If it takes 6 months to respond to changes in customer demand, by the time you actually respond, like especially given 2020, that customer demand is not what it was 6 months ago.
Gone. Yeah. And, and it's also, I mean, what's interesting too, you talk about sort of businesses looking forward, it's sort of future proofing your business, right? You got to think about all these possibilities that are out there or where you really want to be in order for how things are gearing up. That's why we see some companies were very successful during the pandemic.
Right. 100%.
Now, we're talking about data, but I want to weave it into something that's kind of top of mind around here, and that's data privacy. When it comes to all of this cybersecurity, which we were just talking about yesterday, and being private with your data, it's no secret that GDPR is probably around the corner for us here too. And what is it? What are some of these important issues in your opinion that are happening right now in regards to data privacy and, the federal regulations and transparency? What are you thinking about right now?
Yeah, look, I mean, there are really two sides of this coin. The first side, you sort of talked about both of them, but the first side of the coin is the regulatory environment. GDPR, CCPA, and look, like from that perspective, mechanically, we do our best, and our platform is 100% compliant, and making sure that our customers can be fully compliant with the latest regulation. And it's very important that brands are able to affect this. I know that there were some European brands who actually just shut down. They're like, this is too hard. Which really just shows that if you're not modernizing the way you do things, it can really sort of set you back materially. But the second part, which is much trickier, is just thinking about the evolving consumer expectations. We talked about digitization at the top of the show or the episode. And there's an expectation that if consumers engage in a digitized experience, there'll be some level of measurement. Now from a brand's perspective, that needs to be used in a way that drives value to the customer, not abused in a way that it feels as if it's invading the customer's privacy. It's really critical that as a marketing function and as a brand, they're able to really establish the line between where are you adding value versus where is where is this over the line, and really just establish that, and really make sure that as they go, they learn, they listen to the customer, and just be as respectful at all times.
Brian, is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of GDPR? I know this is always a fun topic.
I mean, I guess, it's and I agree with you, Jason, on that. I think here's the thing. How do you, if users are saying don't measure the data, right? Like don't measure my data, or is there going to be some piece where you're going to be able to sort of measure the anonymous piece because you're not really tracking them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, well, there are a couple of things. The first, just to state the obvious in case anyone listening is unclear, if with GDPR it gives users the right to be forgotten. Right. If a user requests this for a brand, from our perspective, we'll delete remove all their data from our platform. So there's nothing on the customer anymore.
Exactly.
Now the question is, how do we think about users who haven't exercised that right? Right. Or users who are anonymous that actually don't have that right. The right only exists for customers who have a degree of PII. And the answer is, look, like, the first thing is, anonymous data can still be collected under GDPR. So for your web analytics and product analytics, even if Brian and Nicolette, you guys just say, hey, don't track me at all, it's still fine to track you as a counter. How many people came to my website yesterday, or my conversion rate? That's all perfect.
Pages, things like that, or abandons and stuff like that.
Exactly. Now, and then the question is for, if you guys hadn't opted out, still, that doesn't imply that under GDPR, brands should be aggressive in targeting you in creepy ways, right? And that's sort of where,
Because I think a lot of people have questions about that. I really do, because they're, you saw everyone implementing like the cookies and the privacy right out of the gate before users even registered, so I think people have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, I think, look, we saw adoption rates of GDPR was higher than we would have expected. I think CCPA believed censorship was a little bit lower than we had forecasted. But at the end of the day, I mean, the third party changes, I think. I mean, the third party cookie changes, were instituted by Google primarily. And they're self-serving. I think they'll just give, at the end of the day, Facebook and Google a lot more leverage and put a lot more pain around the broader ad network and ad ecosystem. Which to Facebook and Google's credit, there's they have such a dominant presence. There are so many players in that ecosystem that just had to do sketchy things to survive, and that sort of became more of a standard than an exception. And I think it sort of gave them a bit of a scare, I'd imagine, in terms of just tarnishing the value it has on the web generally. And then they also just saw more strategic points of leverage to affect those changes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Jason. And, I would love for you to leave us off with kind of where we can learn more about you, where we can learn more about Simon Data, anything you're working on that you want to share with the audience. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. So to learn more about Simon Data, you can just go to our website at simondata.com or email us at hello@simondata. And that's how you can learn more about us.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. We appreciate it.